What happens when a quiet Filipino scholarship kid dares to challenge the pride of South Korea's brightest tech academy? Everyone said it was impossible, that a boy from Manila could never outthink the genius every professor called untouchable. But when the contest began, the unthinkable happened, and the whole world watched a nobody rewrite the meaning of genius in one unforgettable showdown. Rain streaked across the glass walls of the Seoul International Science Academy as Miguel Reyes adjusted the strap of his worn backpack. The Filipino scholarship student stood just inside the entrance, the scent of polished floors and winter air mingling around him. He had arrived months ago with a single suitcase and a head full of equations, carrying the quiet determination of every overseas family who had pooled savings and prayers to send one of their own abroad. Inside these walls, brilliance was the norm. Students from across Asia competed for top marks, each chasing the promise of international universities and cutting-edge research labs. And among them all, one name shimmered like a legend: Park Jihoon. Jihoon was the academy's golden boy, handsome, composed, the son of a technology magnate whose companies shaped the skyline of Seoul. Teachers called him a born innovator. He spoke with the calm certainty of someone who had never been told no. Rumor claimed he had solved graduate-level mathematics before he turned 15. To Miguel, still unpacking the rhythms of a foreign city, Jihoon seemed untouchable. Their first meeting came during the annual Robotics Design Challenge, a fiercely competitive event that determined scholarships and internships with Korea's biggest tech firms. Miguel had quietly registered his own team of one, preferring solitude to the swirl of cliques that formed around the academy's wealthier students. His project, an adaptive drone programmed to map disaster zones, was ambitious but underfunded. He scavenged components from recycling bins and late-night electronics markets near Dongdaemun, soldering wires in his tiny dorm room until his fingers blistered. The day of the preliminary review, Miguel wheeled his prototype into the bright laboratory hall. Jihoon was already there, surrounded by a team of 3 and an array of sleek components that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Their machine looked like something from a government lab. Polished, aerodynamic, every piece custom machined. Jihoon's eyes flicked toward Miguel's scuffed equipment. "Interesting choice," he said in crisp English. "You're competing alone?" Miguel nodded. "Yeah, it works better that way." Jihoon's polite smile carried a shadow of amusement. "Good luck then. You'll need it." The judges moved from station to station, their clipboards filling with notes. Miguel's drone hummed to life with a soft whir, lifting smoothly and navigating the obstacle course with unexpected grace. It wasn't flashy, but its precision drew murmurs from the crowd. Still, when the scores were posted, Jihoon's team ranked first. Miguel was a distant second. For most, that would have been the end of the story. But the challenge had a final round. A live head-to-head test under unpredictable conditions. Anything could happen when algorithms met chaos. In the weeks that followed, Miguel immersed himself in the quiet hours of the lab. He studied weather data, emergency response protocols, the mathematics of flight stability. He modified his drone to learn on the fly, to react to unknown variables the way a living creature might. Alone at midnight, with the city glittering beyond the frosted windows, he whispered to himself the lessons his father had taught back in Manila. "Ingatan mo ang puso mo, anak. Let your heart guide the work. That's where genius truly lives." When finals day arrived, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. 2 arenas had been constructed side by side, each a miniature disaster landscape of collapsing bridges, sudden gusts of wind, and hidden heat sources meant to mimic fires. The challenge: locate and map every survivor beacon in 20 minutes. Jihoon's team entered like celebrities, their uniforms crisp, their machine a gleaming marvel. Miguel wheeled in his patched-together drone, drawing curious glances from the audience. He felt the weight of every peso his family had sacrificed, but also their faith. At the signal, both drones lifted off. Jihoon's machine shot forward with stunning speed, sensors flashing like a comet. Miguel's rose more slowly, adjusting to the sudden gust that swept across the arena. The crowd murmured, already sure of the outcome. But as the test continued, subtle differences emerged. Jihoon's drone, built for speed and spectacle, faltered when a sudden magnetic field interfered with its navigation. It corrected, but precious seconds slipped away. Miguel's creation, meanwhile, adapted in real time. It swayed with the wind, recalibrated around heat pockets, and, almost instinctively, found hidden beacons others might have missed. The scoreboard ticked upward. 10 minutes in, the impossible happened. Miguel pulled ahead. Jihoon's jaw tightened. His team scrambled, uploading emergency patches, but each correction introduced new instability. Miguel's drone glided steadily, a silent answer to every obstacle. When the buzzer sounded, the final tally blazed across the screen. Miguel Reyes, 100% coverage. Park Jihoon, 82%. A hush fell over the hall. Then, a ripple of cheers, students and even judges rising to their feet. Miguel stood frozen, heart pounding, as the announcer declared the result. Jihoon approached, expression unreadable. For a moment, Miguel braced for arrogance. Instead, Jihoon extended his hand. "Impressive," he said quietly. "You anticipated everything." Miguel shook his hand, feeling the tremor of adrenaline finally break into a quiet pride. He had come to Seoul a stranger, the Underdog scholarship kid. Now the academy's brightest star had acknowledged his brilliance. Outside, as the winter sky began to clear, Miguel pulled out his phone. A message from his mother waited. "We're watching the live stream. Anak, you make the whole barangay proud." He smiled, eyes lifting to the city lights. The competition was only the beginning. He had outsmarted the genius, but more importantly, he had proven that brilliance needs no pedigree, only perseverance and heart. The next morning, the sun filtered through the old windows of the library, casting a warm, amber glow on the worn-out tables and dusty bookshelves. Miguel had spent the night replaying every detail of his encounter with Jihoon, the Korean genius whose confidence bordered on arrogance. Their first debate had sparked something deep inside Miguel, a challenge he refused to back down from. He walked to school early, the hallways still quiet, the air carrying a faint scent of chalk and floor polish. His heart thudded with a mix of anxiety and excitement. Today wasn't an official competition, but he knew the unspoken rematch would happen. Jihoon arrived late as if to make an entrance. His sleek black hair was perfectly combed, his uniform immaculate. The other students whispered as he strode in, his eyes scanning the room until they locked on Miguel. A small smirk tugged at Jihoon's lips, as if to say, "Ready to lose again?" Miguel met his gaze without flinching. The tension between them was like an electric wire humming in the air. Their math teacher announced a surprise quiz, something Jihoon clearly hadn't expected. "Pair work," the teacher said, and the room buzzed with restless chatter. Jihoon and Miguel almost magnetically ended up together. Jihoon raised an eyebrow. "Guess it's fate," he said lightly, though his tone carried a challenge. Miguel didn't bother with a reply. He simply nodded and opened his notebook. The quiz was brutal. Questions twisted with layered equations and word problems that seemed deliberately designed to confuse. Jihoon wrote furiously, his pen gliding across the page like a sword through air. Miguel, however, paused at each question, his brow furrowed, but not out of doubt. He was dissecting each problem carefully, searching for hidden shortcuts. Jihoon noticed the deliberate pace and smirked again. "Too hard?" he whispered. Miguel ignored him. Instead, he remembered what his grandfather once told him when teaching him to repair old radios. "The fastest path isn't RT always the straightest. Sometimes you have to see the invisible route." With that thought, Miguel spotted patterns others might overlook. Where Jihoon worked the long formulas, Miguel cut through with elegant mental tricks, reducing entire pages of calculations to a few lines. When the teacher collected the papers, Jihoon leaned back, confident. "You're good," he admitted, "but speed matters." Miguel only offered a quiet smile. Minutes later, when the graded quizzes returned, Miguel's score glared from the page. A perfect 100. Jihoon had a 98. The room erupted with whispers and muffled gasps. Jihoon's eyes narrowed, surprise flickering for the first time. During lunch, Jihoon approached Miguel at the outdoor canteen. "Beginner's luck," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. Miguel finally spoke. "It's not about luck. It's about thinking differently." Jihoon sat down across from him, curiosity breaking through his pride. "Differently, huh? Show me." Miguel pulled out the quiz and pointed to a particularly tricky question. He explained how he recognized a hidden pattern, a shortcut Jihoon had overlooked because he attacked it head-on. Jihoon leaned closer, listening despite himself. "Interesting," he murmured. "I've never seen it that way." The conversation stretched on, blending competition with a growing respect neither wanted to admit. Other students watched from nearby tables, whispering about the unlikely duo, the quiet Filipino who just outscored the genius from Seoul. Some called it a fluke. Others sensed a rivalry that would redefine the entire school year. Over the next few weeks, their encounters became daily mental duels. In science class, they clashed over physics experiments, each trying to outdo the other in precision and creativity. In history, they turned debates into intellectual chess matches, trading arguments so sharp the teacher often let them lead the discussion. Their classmates started placing friendly bets on who would win each day. Outside the classroom, Miguel's routine grew more intense. He stayed up late, reading not just textbooks but research papers and puzzles from university-level math forums. He wasn't trying to copy Jihoon's brilliance, he was building his own path. Meanwhile, Jihoon noticed. Late one evening, he found Miguel alone in the library, surrounded by books. Instead of mocking him, Jihoon silently pulled up a chair and opened his own laptop. They studied side by side, neither speaking, yet both aware they were sharpening each other like rival blades. One rainy afternoon, their dynamic shifted. The school announced an interacademic contest against other international schools. Jihoon was naturally expected to lead the team. To everyone's surprise, the principal appointed Miguel as co-leader. Some students questioned the decision, but the principal explained, "Leadership is not just about knowledge. It's about vision and adaptability, qualities Miguel demonstrates daily." Jihoon didn't protest, but his expression was unreadable. As they prepared for the contest, they discovered how differently they approached problems. Jihoon was meticulous, building strategies like a general planning war. Miguel favored intuition, seeing solutions others missed. At first, they clashed. Arguments flared over tactics and presentation styles. One night, while practicing in the empty auditorium, Jihoon finally spoke after a long silence. "You know," he said softly, "back in Seoul, I was always the smartest. No one challenged me. Then I came here, and..." He hesitated. Miguel looked up, sensing vulnerability. "And what?" Jihoon exhaled. "You make me think in ways I didn't know I could." Miguel felt a flicker of pride, not just for himself but for the unexpected friendship forming beneath their rivalry. "Maybe that's the point," he replied, "to learn from each other." The contest day arrived with the entire school buzzing. The auditorium filled with students, teachers, and even local reporters. The event combined lightning-fast quizzes, problem-solving relays, and a live debate. Miguel and Jihoon stood side by side on stage, representing their school against teams from across the region. The spotlight was blinding, the pressure immense. In the first round, Jihoon dominated the quick answer portion, his speed astonishing. In the second, Miguel dazzled the crowd with a creative solution to a physics puzzle that left judges nodding in admiration. Their complementary strengths turned them into an unstoppable duo. The crowd began chanting their names in unison, a rhythm that echoed through the hall. By the final debate, it was clear their school was ahead. Yet the last question, a complex ethical scenario about artificial intelligence, demanded not just facts but vision. Jihoon started strong with a precise argument, but Miguel added an unexpected twist, connecting technology with cultural values and community impact. His words drew a standing ovation. When the results were announced, their school won by a landslide. Jihoon turned to Miguel, a wide grin breaking his usual cool demeanor. "We did it," he said, extending a hand. Miguel shook it firmly, their rivalry now cemented as something greater, a partnership built on respect. That night, under the soft glow of streetlights outside the school, Jihoon and Miguel walked side by side. "You know," Jihoon said, "genius isn't about who's smarter. It's about how we make each other better." Miguel smiled, the quiet pride of his victory tempered by something deeper. The realization that he hadn't just outsmarted a genius, he had gained a friend who understood him in a way few ever could. But deep inside, Miguel knew this was only the beginning. The world was larger than their school, and challenges far greater than quizzes and debates awaited. And for the first time, he felt ready, because he had proven that brilliance isn't measured by birth or background, but by the courage to think beyond limits. The weeks after the Interacademic contest passed in a blur of applause, interviews, and curious classmates who suddenly wanted to sit with Miguel at lunch. Teachers congratulated him in hallways. The principal invited him to speak to younger students about innovative thinking, and even the janitor gave him a proud thumbs up whenever they crossed paths. Yet fame was not what Miguel sought. What mattered most was the quiet shift between him and Jihoon. Their rivalry had cooled into something richer, a partnership built on trust and the unspoken understanding that each had changed the other. Miguel began to notice how Jihoon lingered after classes, asking not just about formulas or debate tactics, but about Miguel's family, his favorite street foods, the festivals in their small town. Jihoon, who once moved like a solitary comet across the school sky, started laughing more, joining basketball games in the courtyard, and even attempting to pronounce Tagalog phrases with a thick but earnest accent. When he mispronounced salamat as salamon, the entire class erupted in giggles, including Miguel, who nearly fell off his chair. Jihoon laughed along, unbothered, and something in that easy humility made Miguel respect him even more. One humid Friday afternoon, Jihoon invited Miguel to his home for the first time. It was a sleek condominium near the university district, filled with books in Korean and English, neatly stacked like soldiers ready for inspection. The walls held framed photographs of Seoul's skyline and handwritten notes of complex equations. Miguel took it all in, impressed but not intimidated. Over bowls of steaming ramyun, they traded stories of childhood. Jihoon spoke of late nights in Seoul, where his parents pushed him toward perfection, where every mistake felt like a public failure. Miguel countered with tales of fishing trips with his Lolo, of afternoons fixing radios in a cramped shop that smelled of solder and coconut oil. "You were taught to be perfect," Miguel said thoughtfully. "I was taught to improvise," Jihoon smiled. "Maybe that's why you surprise me. You see shortcuts I never imagine." Their bond deepened in those quiet moments. They still challenged each other. Late-night chess matches that stretched past midnight, timed math puzzles scribbled on napkins, but now the competition was playful, almost brotherly. Miguel realized that outsmarting a genius was not about proving superiority. It was about inspiring one another to climb higher than either could alone. Then came the National Science and Innovation Fair, a competition known across the Philippines for drawing the brightest young minds. Universities offered scholarships to winners, and tech companies scouted for future prodigies. Their school received an invitation, and all eyes turned to Miguel and Jihoon. The principal called them into her office, a room smelling faintly of varnish and jasmine tea. "I want both of you to represent us," she said, her voice firm but warm. "Together. You've shown what collaboration can achieve. Now show the nation." The project required more than memorized formulas. Teams had to invent a practical solution to a real-world problem and defend it before a panel of scientists, engineers, and business leaders. Jihoon suggested renewable energy. Miguel proposed an educational app that could teach math through Filipino cultural games, merging tradition with technology. After a long night of brainstorming under flickering fluorescent lights in the library, they combined their ideas. A portable learning device powered entirely by solar energy, designed for rural villages where electricity and internet were unreliable. The following month was a crucible of sleepless nights and relentless testing. Jihoon handled the intricate circuitry, his precise hands soldering connections like a master artisan. Miguel focused on the software, creating games that wove in local legends, folk songs, and math puzzles hidden inside stories of ancient heroes. They argued often, over battery capacity, over color schemes, over whether to include a Tagalog voiceover, but each clash only sharpened their design. When the prototype finally worked, glowing gently under a dim lamp, both boys sat back in stunned silence. "It's beautiful," Jihoon whispered. "It's ours," Miguel replied, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. Competition day arrived in Manila, where the fair occupied a sprawling convention center, humming with drones, robots, and dazzling displays of futuristic tech. Teams from elite international schools set up booths lined with neon lights and expensive gadgets. Miguel and Jihoon's corner looked humble by comparison, a small table draped in a woven banig mat. their solar-powered learning device resting in the center like a simple wooden box. But as judges approached, Miguel began his presentation with a calm confidence that drew every ear. He spoke of children in remote barangays who studied by candlelight, of the joy of learning through cultural stories, of technology that honored heritage while propelling it forward. Jihoon demonstrated the flawless energy system, explaining how the device stored power for cloudy days, his Korean accent giving each technical term a gentle lilt. Their harmony was undeniable. Miguel the storyteller, Jihoon the engineer. The judges asked relentless questions: cost of production, durability in monsoon rains, adaptability to different dialects. Miguel answered with quick thinking, while Jihoon sketched diagrams on a tablet, illustrating solutions in real time. By the time they finished, a small crowd of spectators had gathered, many wiping away tears at the sight of a project so rooted in compassion. Hours later, under the blinding lights of the award ceremony, the MC announced the winners. First place, Solar Cultura, by Miguel Santos and Jihoon Park. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Miguel felt Jihoon grip his shoulder tightly, and for a brief second, all the months of rivalry and restless nights crystallized into a single, unforgettable triumph. Reporters swarmed them afterward, microphones flashing. Miguel, one asked, how does it feel to outsmart a Korean genius and win? Miguel shook his head, smiling. It was never about outsmarting anyone. Genius isn't a contest. It's about sharing ideas and lifting each other higher. Jihoon nodded, his voice steady. He's right. Miguel showed me that intelligence isn't just speed or memory, it's heart. Their project caught the attention of a major educational foundation, which offered funding to distribute the devices across rural Philippine schools. Within months, prototypes reached mountain villages in Mindanao, fishing towns in Visayas, and storm-battered communities in Luzon. Photos poured in of children laughing under the sun, their faces lit by the gentle glow of the learning device, their curiosity sparked by games that wove math into the rhythms of Filipino folklore. Miguel returned to his quiet town a local hero, though he never let the praise define him. He still fixed radios in his grandfather's shop, still helped his younger siblings with homework. But now, letters arrived weekly from students across the archipelago, thanking him for making learning possible. Jihoon visited often, bringing Korean snacks and new ideas for improvements. They began planning an expanded version with more languages and subjects, dreaming bigger than either had dared before. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the shop's wooden steps, Jihoon said softly, "You know, back in Seoul, they called me a genius. But meeting you, it made me realize genius means nothing if it's only for yourself." Miguel smiled, the fading light painting his face gold. "Then let's keep proving that together." They sat in companionable silence, the world around them humming with possibility. The rivalry that began with a simple challenge had evolved into a friendship capable of reshaping futures. Miguel had not only outsmarted a genius, he had redefined what genius truly meant, weaving it into the heart of his culture, his community, and his own quiet, unstoppable drive. And as the first stars appeared over the Philippine sky, both boys knew this was only the beginning of a lifelong journey to illuminate minds far beyond their own.